Prynhawn da pawb. My name's Catherine Hammerton. I am a Welsh paper artist. I actually know Bonnie because Bonnie's one of my graduates from Swansea College of Art. We met on Bon's MA. I'm really privileged to be here chatting with her today about this exquisite solo show, her first, I believe, which is really, really exciting. I'll try my best not to swear. Okay, so Bonnie, it's a super beautiful show and a really interesting exhibition title, All the Things I Want to Tell You, but I don't know how. Do you want to just unpack that a little bit and explain it for everyone?
Yeah, so I'm not saying I have important things to say. I'm not claiming that at all. It's just kind of the ongoing conversations that I have in my head. Just trying to get them out of my head and somewhere else not going on in there. It's kind of the things that I think or talk about when no one else is around. And it's kind of just this never-ending dialogue that's going over and over. And this is kind of how it ends up, I guess.
I love it. So it's like this incredible creative monologue, dialogue with yourself and with the materials. You've got a lovely kind of combination of materials in the gallery today. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about your connection to paper, because it's quite vast in the gallery space?
So although a lot of people do know me for my ceramics, it's paper that I usually work in, and I find paper is really versatile. Like, you can do anything with it. So like, it's how I scribble my notes, it's how I do my ideas, it's how I work through maquettes and everything like that. So it's always where my work starts, and kind of no one ever really sees that. So I thought it was quite important to have in this exhibition. So on the walls, I've kind of got this organised chaos, which is kind of like my brain, of like fleeting fragments and bits going to this and leading to others. It's kind of the chaos and the investigations into something and the workings out of how they go together. And I've kind of used this as kind of a chance to get my sketchbook onto the walls. So although actually in the sketchbooks they stay quite separate, this was a chance for them to overlap and kind of talk to each other and have a chance to play with each other. And so I always do continuous line drawing, and that's where the shapes have come from, which kind of float between each kind of section and conversation between each other.
This is going off script, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Have you got, I understand paper, I love paper too. Have you got a favourite paper?
No.
No. No bias to graph paper?
No, I like graph paper and I like smooth paper. If I can,
yeah,
when you're in the shop and you put it against your face,
I love that.
Good paper.
I love that. And the paper weaves, they're such a beautiful large scale. Do you want to just talk us through those?
Yeah, so I kind of see each kind of group as like a conversation talking to each other, and then with the weaves, I've kind of taken lots of conversations and kind of woven them into each other to create something more sturdy and not floating around. And then this one has a letter to my younger self, so it's quite, although you wouldn't be able to see it now because it's all woven together, which is why I kind of like the idea of, writing something personal down and then ripping it up and destroying it and then putting it back together. So it's kind of this chance to make something lovely that I want to put out, but not be confident or wanting for everyone to understand what I'm saying. So kind of, it's still out there and I know what's there. So in my brain, I've said it now. But in the weave, it's disguised as something else.
Does anyone know what's in there?
No.
Will they ever?
No, because I can't remember half the time.
I love that. And there is just such a lovely, fresh hit of colour in the gallery. And it feels like a really conscious selection of your palettes. Do you want to explain a little more about your need for colour and how you've curated them in the space?
Yeah, so there's a lot of blue in the space, because I have a thing about graph paper blue. And I discovered a few years ago while I was doing my MA that there's two different types of graph paper blue.
Are they?
Yeah.
Are they Pantoned?
I don't know, but like you get like the vintage graph paper blue and like the modern graph paper blue, they're slightly different.
Oh, wow.
But to my eye anyway.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a bit obsessed with graph paper blue, and then growing up, I was trying to be like a tomboy, so I couldn't like pink. So in the last few years, I've really claimed liking pink. And then the rest of the colours are just kind of to tie in with that, but that's why there's a lot of pink and there's a lot of blue. And then, because with drawing, it's always like black and white images. So I think with this and how the shapes developed was I really wanted to play with colour, because I always draw with a black pen and then it gets stuck there. So that's where the explosion of colour came from, was this, oh, actually, I really like using colour and I can put colour into everything. And as I said, this is kind of the chaotic side of things, and then in the archway I've gone more kind of pale and more sophisticated in a way, by just using white, or you know, the cuts, or like the stitches. Yeah, so that's kind of more of a quiet contemplation area, and kind of on the bits of paper there's my coded phrases, and it's got kind of more serious and more quiet thoughts, rather than out here it's kind of in your face with some colour and obvious words.
I think that kind of like breath, and as you say, that pause, that quiet, is such a lovely contrast to the colour in the gallery. It's beautiful. And as we move into the archway space, you've got that series of beautiful embossed papers and coded stitch. You've got those, I love these laser cut tapestries, and I cannot wait to see, they're going to be like sundials, I just know it, in the space, on the good days, when we have the good sun. But do you want to explain a little bit more about that lovely use of technology, because this is very much of the hand, drawing, painting, deconstructing, reconstructing, and there's kind of like nods to the old, to the new.
Yeah, so the tapestry, laser cut tapestry, are kind of the starting point for all of this project. It was one of my, I think the second project in the MA. And I was looking back on my nan. She used to do cross stitches, and that's like one of the things I remember about her. And at home, we through like auctions and stuff like that, we got these half-finished tapestries, and I was fascinated with them, but didn't know what to do with them, because I didn't want to add to it or kind of ruin it in any way. So that was kind of me making my own version of the tapestries, because I don't have the skill to make the lace or the patience to do all the cross stitch. So I made cyanotypes of them, which is one of those, and then as like a way to push the cyanotype further, I was like, well, what if I put it through the laser cutter? And so the first few, they took like 7 hours to cut, because the holes were so tiny, and I would often crash the laser cutter program, because the technology just couldn't understand the detail that was going on. And the cross stitches is also where the whole coded language came from. The grids in textiles, or the grids on the tapestry fabric, and these kind of stitches. I wrote an essay for fun about binary code and kind of, you know, the weaving and stuff like that, and how in old computers it was kind of based off the old system of weaving, and how a 0 is where a stitch, I can't remember all of it, but basically the stitch has got all the information in it, and it was that idea of bringing the digital and the analog together with the coded language. So that's where that kind of all came from.
I love
There's a lot
that,
in there, yeah.
I love that you took a modern process that in theory is super quick,
Yeah.
and mashed it
Yeah.
to be really slow and almost like that traditional process that you said you didn't quite have the tolerance for. I think that's a really, really interesting idea. And you've got, for anyone who's not been around the exhibition yet, there's a lovely sound and video piece just tucked away in the alcove, like a quiet little space for an individual kind of moment. Do you want to just tell us a little bit more about how this work has emerged and why it exists in this exhibition.
Yeah, so it's called I, Why, How, because when I was writing out, trying to make a list of all my thoughts, I noticed that they all either started with an I, a why, or a how. So I've kind of seen that as a bit like a confessional booth. So it's kind of all these, a lot of what's said out loud is what's hidden in the codes around the space. But in the actual video, it's overlapped, so you still can't hear what it is saying. But I just thought it was nice to have that in such a quiet space, to put the headphones on, to then hear all these overlapping thoughts going on and on and on. So that's kind of why that exists in there.
Are we a bit like in your head there?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Especially
love
with the headphones, yeah.
Oh God, form an order DQ for that one. And your ceramics, so you're probably best known for your ceramic work. And when I met you, you were a bit of a secret wannabe potter.
Yes.
And at your interview, I was so excited to meet you because I could see such rich potential from your fine art portfolio and how our department might support your material exploration. And I remember chuckling most weeks when you'd be like, and I just want to do this. And I'd be like, okay, you go do that. I think that sounds great. So you've become really quite well known for your ceramics that came strongly through in your MA.
Mm-hmm.
But do you want to tell us a little bit about that kind of meandering path that rabbit warren you've been down?
So all the drawings that I do kind of come from ceramics. So the motifs, it's normally meat plates. They have stunning patterns on them. So it's always come from ceramics. And when I started on the binary code, I wanted to find somewhere for the text to go on. So I kind of did this idea of commemorative ware and traditional kind of ceramics that had kind of important events on their pots to commemorate it. And I didn't really have anything important really going on in my life at that point. So I was like, well, what if I just put, just a little thought that I had on a piece of ceramic? Because once it's on there, it's kind of stuck and it's, it's solid. Whereas if it was on paper, you could probably paint over it, or if it's in pencil, you can rub it out so it's less kind of sturdy. So that's kind of where the ceramics came from. This is like a massive rabbit hole in my brain, so I've got to remember where I'm going.
I'm gonna give you a little nudge, because we used to have great conversations about potters that we loved, because I think both of us want to be potters as well. And our love for Betty Woodman and her influence on your work was really important.
Yeah, so it's kind of, I tried to throw, this is the other thing, I tried to do the traditional kind of forage for the clay and go on a wheel. The technicians and the tutors used to run away from me because I just can't throw. So that's why it's all slab built, because it's kind of, when you draw a jug, it becomes this flat object. So with my ceramics, I kind of take that and go, well, if I use clay as if it was a piece of paper and kind of stick it together, just pinch it a bit so it's got a bit of a stand, I can make a jug. And I think that was always my aim, was to make a jug. And kind of, so it's, my drawings just kind of in more of a solid form. And I remember when I started the MA, you were like, oh, but you'll get into like enamel and stuff like that. And I tried it, but because enamel is always stiff, like you can't bend it really. Whereas clay, it's got a good day and a half where you can fold it, you can make it wibbly wobbly and kind of bend it to what you want. I really like that idea of, going back to paper, how you can fold it, you can however you want it and it will stay. But with ceramics, it's once you put it in the kiln, it's stuck there. Can't change it then.
So yeah, that's lovely. And I think when people see your drawings, your jugs and your ceramics, they are your drawings. They're from 2D to 3D, with that lovely subtle nuance and play. So I think that's something really, really interesting about the way in which you work in the material. And you've chosen to put them on a really traditional Welsh dresser, which I think is just so beautiful. It kind of is old but new, and kind of there's lots of kind of narrative woven into that. Do you want to unpack that a little bit for everyone to understand a bit better?
Yeah, so I always, when I got into looking at historical ceramics and stuff like that, and growing up through some family business selling antiques, you'd go to these houses and you'd see dresses just crammed full of stuff. So I think in my brain, they were always destined to end up on a dresser. It's just for this exhibition, I actually finally bought the dresser. So now that's like, you'll see that again, for sure. A lot of work went into that. So it's kind of important for me to have it on the Welsh dresser. And also when you went to a family home, if you look closely on the Welsh dress, you know, things get shoved on there that might not be important. It might be, I don't know, little kids made something at school and then brought it home, but because it's important to the family, it gets put on there and it's like pride of place. So with my work, you know, there's some kind of big important thoughts going on the jugs, and then there's some like little phrases that might not be so important and stuff like that, but it all has a home on the dresser and kind of lives there and is displayed there because that's where it's home now.
So they're kind of, you're honouring all of those thoughts in a really kind of traditional way. Love that. And the broken bonnies. So on that shelf, adjacent to the dresser, we've got a series of what you're calling broken bonnies.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about those?
A few years ago, I was procrastinating and I decided to rename all my jug shapes because they all come from paper templates. I renamed them all B names. So you've got like Belinda, Beatrice, and that one is Bonnie because that was the first jug that I drew when I was making the jugs, and kind of that was the first one that I turned into a jug. She's not there because I really don't like her.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Is there a missing Bonnie?
There's an ugly Bonnie gone.
Ugly Bonds. Will we ever see Ugly Bonnie?
Maybe. But it's also the jug that size. I can make her in smaller sizes. There's a few of them, but when it gets to that size, just it always breaks somehow. But I think it's because I'm so like I want it to succeed so much that there is one that is almost perfect, and I got really kind of big-headed and was like, yeah, I'm just going to smooth this off before it got fired. And I pinched it too much and it's got crack down the seam. And I was like, oh no. So it split open. So it's like this continual kind of attempt of making this perfect Bonnie jug. And when I first made the jugs, I was personifying, yes, myself in these jugs because I put so much effort in them. So it's quite nice to have this line of broken Bonnies because I don't think anyone is a perfect version of themselves. So I kind of see that with them. So I enjoy that every time. I don't enjoy it, but yeah, I don't get so angry when they crack because I'm like, it's another one for the collection that I can kind of test and see how these things go wrong, but it's fine. Those ones I'm at peace when they break.
I love it. So there's forgiveness for Bonnie. And what do you think? What if you actually ever get to perfect Bonnie?
I almost got there with the one.
Is that going to be disappointing?
I don't know, because then what do I do?
I know. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
I almost got there, and then I realised halfway through that I just decorated it wrong. So I'm forgetting what the original perfect Bonnie looks like now.
Oh, I love that she's being like re-evaluated and renewed.
Yeah, so there's one, it's like almost there. It's got no big breaks, but I've just designed it wrong. So somewhere in the line, I've forgotten what it looks like.
I think they're pretty perfect. Okay, and you use the Welsh language consistently and throughout your work you claim it really explicitly. Why is this so important to you as a Welsh artist?
So it's mainly on the jugs I use a lot of Welsh language. I'm surprised actually I haven't come up with an odd Welsh word because my brain sometimes just defers to that. But I actually was born in Cambridge and then moved to Wales when I was younger. Got put in an all Welsh primary school and had to learn Welsh really, like within a year I had to know what everyone was saying.
But your classes were small, weren't they?
Yes, there was like three in my year group, and then the school closed down and I went to a bigger school, and then into secondary school where it was all Welsh, and I really struggled with the Welsh language. Like it wasn't cool to speak. It's like I wouldn't speak it. I'd be cool and speak English. And then a few years ago, I kind of had this realization of, well, actually, it's something to be proud of. And also moving from England to Wales, I was always classed as English. And then I've lived most of my life in Wales now, so I'm like, no, actually I am Welsh. This is how I identify and that. And yeah, it was just important for me to have it because I'm finally claiming it as my language and as kind of my personality in a way. And like when we were putting up this exhibition yesterday, me and Rhian were only speaking Welsh. And I was so tired that I didn't clock that it was happening, and that for me that was quite nice because I was like, oh, I'm not overthinking speaking Welsh, because you know when you're in school you have to be proper Welsh and have the correct translations and all that. But just this conversational Welsh, I was like, actually no, this is something that I can do for me.
Nice. So that feels like home too.
Yeah, definitely.
And of everything that you've included in this selection of work, at the moment, because obviously we're just in the here and now, I'm sure there's so much more to come. Is there anything that you feel is left unsaid?
Oh, definitely. I think with something like this, you'll be putting an exhibition together and then thinking, oh, actually, I could do this and I could do this. And I had so many bigger plans for this exhibition. And then just because of time, I was like, I had to prioritize certain things. So I'd say there's plenty left unsaid. Yeah, and kind of this is more of like a starting point, if anything. So instead of it being a full stop, it's kind of restarting all of this because it's an opportunity to do it all over again. And yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
That was lovely.